You want to find that drive and focus that has you locked in and on fire every single day? My book, The Mirror Motivation, will do it for you. I bought a copy for you. You take care of the shipping. The book is free. Click the link down there. I got you.
Stay all day.
Give me your attention and focus. You are now tuned in to the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day, to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve is yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative. This is that go-getter energy that moves you to make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. Putting all this together, you get the mindset, the method, the podcast, the philosophy, the book known as Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day. Welcome to the show. Today's topic is how to get uncomfortable and stay there. Uncomfortable, not comfortable, but uncomfortable. Why would you actually want to do this? You may be wondering. You'll understand as you listen to everything that's going to be delivered to you today. Those who achieve, here's one reason. Those who achieve at super high levels of accomplishment. And I'm going to venture to guess that if you're listening to this, if you're still listening after you heard what the topic is, that you're a person who either is achieving at a very high level of accomplishment, or you plan on becoming that person, or you're somewhere in the process of becoming a person who achieves at a really high level. Compared to other people out there, the people who aren't achieving at a super high level, maybe they're achieving, but not at a super high level. You compared to them is not that you're just working harder than everybody else. I know that's what your parents and your coaches and your teachers and maybe some motivator that you listen to, or maybe you yourself have told yourself that if you just, the way that you achieve more than everybody else is just outwork everybody else. Now, while outworking everybody else may be a component of out-achieving other people, it is not the key to out-achieving other people. And it's also not that you're smarter than everybody else. And or if you are not as smart as someone else, that is not a limit or some cap or something that's going to keep you from achieving what you want to achieve, no matter what the level is. It's not about hard work. It is not about intelligence. It is not that you're necessarily better at other people at what you do. So all three of these that you have probably been conditioned to believe are the differentiating factors between someone who achieves at one level and someone who achieves at another one. Being smarter than them, working harder than them, being better than them. These can possibly be components of your accomplishment, but they are not the key to out accomplishing other people or just having a certain level of accomplishment that is relatively speaking higher than others. It is that, here's the thing. This is the key that I'm going to share with you here today. The whole topic is about this. It's that person's, the high achieving person, their willingness to deal with what other people just are not willing to deal with. Their threshold for dealing with discomfort. Whether that discomfort comes in the form of learning, it could come in the form of utilizing energy, it could come in the form of endurance, in the form of mental toughness, in the form of exerting discipline on yourself, in the form of being mentally tough enough to know that even though you just suffered a great setback, you can come back and make things happen again. It's your ability to deal with that discomfort of whatever it is that you think, whatever it is that you know, you don't even have to be thinking that you know would help you get further ahead in your career, in your business, in your sport, in your life. You know it will help you get further ahead, but you also know that the more you do it and the longer you do it, the more uncomfortable it can become. Your willingness to deal with that discomfort and stay with that discomfort is what separates you from other people out there. Because understand, everyone has the capacity to work hard. Everyone knows about working hard. All right? Working hard is not a trade secret. Being smarter than other people, well, everyone has access to information. You don't even have to have it all in your head. You can just get a bunch of people around you who have the information that you don't have, and they can supply you with it. So being smarter definitely is not the key. Being better than other people, definitely not either. All right, there's probably a soda out there that is better than Coca-Cola, but we don't know about it because Coca-Cola owns as far as cola soda, it owns that position in our minds. So being better is not necessarily the thing. I hear often from athletes who will say something like, well, I think I'm better than the people who are on the team and I didn't make it, or I'm better than people who are playing on the team and I'm not playing. Well, the problem is being better is not the key. You got to be willing to deal with the discomfort that many other people are just not willing to handle. There are a few episodes I'm going to reference right now that you can refer yourself to if they're publicly available. A couple of these are, and many of them are not. But I'll tell you about how you can get access to all of them in a moment, later in this episode. But these episodes you do need to reference because they are tangential to today's topic. Episode number 1145. Increased influence equals increased discomfort. You want to be a more influential person, you will be uncomfortable more often. Episode number 819. Who is willing to go the furthest? That's the person who usually ends up winning. Episode number 707. Are you willing to get your hands dirty to do what you need to do? Episode number 412. How do you keep believing in whatever you're believing in, whether it's yourself, your project, your idea, when nobody else is believing in it? So refer yourself to those episodes as we get into today's topic, which is, again, how to get uncomfortable and stay uncomfortable voluntarily. This is a choice to get uncomfortable and stay. This is not something that's just going to happen to you. Point number one. Here's a question. What's driving you? What is it that is within you that is driving you to action, driving you to initiative, driving you to be disciplined and do what you're supposed to do? What is that driving factor that's pushing you or pulling you to where you're going? Psychologists have studied and found that most of us as human beings, we are many times more driven by negative factors than by positive factors. In other words, I did a whole episode that I don't have a number in front of me here, but you can access it as a member of the game group. I did a whole episode where I talked about why we all perform much better when we're angry than when we're, let's say, happy or ecstatic, or we just have this great positive energy. Anger drives us to more action, more sustained action, more discipline, and a higher level of focus than happiness does. And I did a whole episode explaining why that is. If you want to learn why that is, then you need to go listen to that episode. Again, in the game group membership, you can get access to all of that. We are more driven by avoiding loss or avoiding things that we don't want or getting rid of things that we don't want than we are motivated to gain something that we do want. We will work harder to avoid losing $100 than we'll work hard to gain $100. If you knew there was $100 that belonged to you and someone stole it from you, you would work harder to get that $100 back than you would work hard if I said to you, look, if you do this thing, and this thing, I'll give you $100. You wouldn't be as motivated to do the thing to gain than you would be to recover what you think you have lost or what you could see as possibly being a loss. So you need to be honest with yourself on this point. The first point, again, is what is driving you. You need to be honest with yourself about what the negative motivators are for you and utilize them to push yourself forward or to pull yourself forward, to motivate you to action. What are your negative motivators? That's the question that you need to have an answer to. And you need to know what they are. You need to learn how to tap into those negative motivators on call whenever you need to, because they will heighten your focus. They will sharpen your focus. They will move you to more action. They'll move you to action more quickly. They will initiate your initiative, so you'll actually start moving, and they will sustain you. They will keep you moving much longer than positive energy keeps us moving. This is just the way that we're wired as human beings. So while you may not want to publicize what your negative motivators are, you may not want anyone to know what they are, you need to know what they are. You need to be honest with yourself about what they are, because as I'm telling you here, they will move you to action better than any other energy that you can come up with. Michael Jordan, who I talked about in the Virtual Mentors episode number 5, many people, after his career ended, people started to tell these stories about how Mike would make up stories in his mind of some opponent trash talking to him when the opponent had actually never said anything to him. But Mike would make up the story in his mind, because having that story in his mind, he would make himself believe it, would motivate him to play better against that opponent the next game. There was a game early in Mike's career, maybe his rookie year, where they were playing against, I believe it was the Washington Bullets. They weren't the Wizards at this time. They were called the Bullets. And there was a guy on the other team who scored like 34 points or something like that, 37 points on Michael Jordan in the game. Jordan was guarding this guy, and this guy had a great game, scored like 37 points on Jordan. The next time the Bulls played against this same team and the same player, Michael Jordan scored 34 points in the first half of the game because he was out to get revenge on this player. And it turns out, when people asked Mike about that game, how he was playing with so much fire and energy in that second matchup, that revenge quote-unquote matchup, why he was doing that, Michael told them, or somehow it got out. I don't know if I ever heard Mike actually say this himself, but somehow it got out that this guy, this random player on the Washington team who had scored 37 on Jordan, that after that first game that he had mockingly said to Mike, hey, good game, after he gave Mike 37 points. He was basically trash talking him, but doing it in a mock congratulatory type of way. And Michael Jordan took that personally, and that was the fire that he used to score 34 points on him in the first half of the next matchup. But it turns out when people asked the guy, this random player who most of you had never heard of, when they asked him, hey, did you talk trash to Jordan? Why did you talk trash to Jordan? What did he say back to you? They were asking him about this whole incident, and the guy said, I never said a single word to Michael Jordan. I never said anything to him. Even when I scored 37 points on him, when he came back and scored 34 points on me in the first half, I never said one word to Michael Jordan. So it turns out that Mike had made up this whole story in his mind because he knew, I'm telling you this, it's for you to understand that Michael was very well in touch with what his negative motivators were. He knew what drove him. He knew that just feeling good and positive and happy wasn't going to drive him as much as feeling vengeful and negative and feeling like he had to redeem himself for what had happened in that previous game. So you need to know what works for you. And he would make up these stories. People say he would make up these stories routinely of people who had beat him or trash talk him, or they had done something to make Mike feel triggered enough to move into that space where he got more focused, more angry, but channeling that anger into his positive actions, which was playing good basketball. You need to figure out what those things are that you hate, the things that you don't want, the things you want to get rid of, the things you absolutely don't want to be any part of your life. Figure out what they are and learn to utilize them as part of your internal drive. And that is something that I teach all as an entire section of my Bulletproof Mindset course. If you haven't taken that course yet, I suggest you go to workonmygame.com/bulletproof and learn about the Bulletproof Mindset course and all the stuff that you get with it. Point number 2. Today's topic is how to get uncomfortable and stay uncomfortable. Let's talk about time perspective. I did an entire episode on this subject as well, but Brian Tracy talked about in one of his books that I read, said the more successful the person, the longer their time perspective on life when it comes to their decision making, when it comes to the actions that they take, when it comes to their habits. The longer their time perspective. Now, what do I mean when I say time perspective? That means successful people, for example, they make their goals, they design their lives thinking further into the future than an unsuccessful person. Unsuccessful people tend to think about the immediate results of their actions. They're looking for instant gratification or to avoid instant retribution, I guess. Unsuccessful people do. Or they don't look to avoid instant, I won't even call it retribution. It could just be called instant discomfort. Unsuccessful people look to stay away from that, while successful people, they will deal with discomfort in the present moment because they understand, because of their time perspective, they understand that being uncomfortable today or this year or for the next 6 months, that will pay off for them 5 years from now, 10 years from now, or it'll pay off in their legacy when they're long gone. That discomfort that they were willing to deal with for a short period of time in the present will pay off a whole lot for them in the future. So the question for you is, what is your time perspective? See, if you think of an unsuccessful person, you know anyone who's unsuccessful, and you think about their habits, you think about the actions that they take, you think about their decision-making process, if you're privy to it, or if you just look at their actions, you can get a good sense of what decisions they're making by looking at the actions that they're taking, right? Because we know a decision is not real till an action is taken behind it. Unsuccessful people only take action based on what they're going to get right now as a result of that action. So in other words, a person who is, let's say, overweight, not in shape, and they're unsuccessful in getting in shape, they've been unsuccessful in getting in shape, they could logically understand that if they work out every day or 5 times a week or 3 times a week for the next 9 months, they could probably get back into pretty good shape and not be overweight anymore, not be endangering their own health anymore. They understand that probably in a logical sense, but they don't emotionally make that time perspective decision because it would be very uncomfortable for the next 4 months, for the next 12 weeks, for them to go to the gym all the time because, first of all, they're still going to be out of shape all this time they're in the gym. They're not going to feel that good maybe because they're going to see all these fit, healthy people who are looking great, working out, and they're not that. They're going to be putting all this time and effort into the gym, and the people around them are going to know that they're doing that and like, man, you keep going to the gym, you still haven't lost that much weight yet. You're still not in that great of a shape yet. All those things are uncomfortable to the unsuccessful person, and it's not The discomfort that makes them unsuccessful is the fact that they don't want to deal with the discomfort that makes them unsuccessful, because their time perspective says being uncomfortable right now is not worth the future payoff. They don't see it as worth a future payoff, so they're not willing to make that investment of being uncomfortable. This is what makes a person unsuccessful, not being willing to deal with that discomfort. Now, a successful person, on the other hand, has a time perspective that says, I'm going to deal with some discomfort now. I'm going to make some sacrifices now, today, and deal with some things that I maybe don't want, some things that are suboptimal in my life. I'm going to deal with them now, which might be now, might be today. It might be for the next 5 years. It might be for the next 6 months. It might be for the 18 years that your parents invested in raising you. Those of you who do not have children, or those of you who are parents, the years you're investing in raising your children. I'm going to deal with the discomfort of having to deal with this person who is completely dependent on me for a certain period of time, because I believe in the future this is going to pay off for me. It's going to be worth the investment. This is the same thing that someone does when they, for example, go to the gym. I mean, it's not always fun to go to the gym. Lifting weights is hard because you're taxing your muscles. You're asking your muscles to do something that is probably going to be a little bit difficult for them to do, whether that's in the size of the weight, the number of repetitions you're doing, the amount of, in aggregate, all the exercises you're doing in that workout, or challenging your heart if you're doing any type of cardio exercise or high intensity interval training. Something you're doing in that gym is challenging your body. It is uncomfortable, at least in the moment when you're doing the activity. But there's a reason why people who go to the gym all the time, why do you do it? It's because you know, time perspective wise, that if I do these workouts, if I spend an hour doing this workout today, I'm going to be in better shape tomorrow. You understand that. And eventually, as you do this often enough, consistently enough, like we talked about in the previous episode just a day or two ago, you get to that fourth day. We talked about the first day a couple days ago, but that fourth day is when you fight through the third days. You fight through the discomfort of the third day often enough that the third day ceases to be such a burden to you. It doesn't bother you as much anymore because you've gotten so used to it that it almost feels easy. That's what we call the fourth day. And I did a whole episode on that. I believe it's episode 907. You can go check that again in the gang group. You can see that episode. So the question here, what we're dealing with here, is the time perspective. We're on point number 2. Today's topic, once again, is how to get uncomfortable and stay there. If you're going to be a successful person, you got to make decisions based on further into the future than an unsuccessful person does. Or you could just, here's another way of looking at it. Since you may not have an unsuccessful person to compare yourself to, we don't want to just pick people at random. How about you start making decisions based further into the future than what you have been doing? Therefore, you can become more successful. How can I make a decision today that's going to pay off for me better further into the future than the way I have been thinking? So if you've only been thinking about this week, how about you start thinking about this month? If you've only been thinking about this month, how about you start thinking about this year? If you've only been thinking about the year, how about you think 5 years or 10 years into the future? You're only thinking right now, start thinking about tomorrow. That's time perspective. Meaning, whenever you make a decision, don't just ask yourself, what's going to make me feel good now? Ask yourself, what's going to make me feel good next year? What decision can I make today that will be better for me in a year than it is today? Even though it may be uncomfortable right now, what's going to make it better for me? While I am an advocate, let me be clear, I'm an advocate of taking action. I'm an advocate of having a sense of urgency in the moment. And we have talked extensively here on this podcast about the fact that we don't know how much time we have. So while at the same time, I'm telling you that you should make decisions thinking further into the future, I'm also reminding you that you have no idea how far into the future you're going to be around to even benefit from these decisions that you're making. All right. So there's a dichotomy here. These are somewhat, in some ways, these ideas are in conflict. All right. So I'm making sure I'm making that clear to you. That doesn't mean that everything you should do and every decision you make should only be for the moment, because you just might be around 5 years from now. You just might be around 20 years from now. So you should probably make some decisions with that time taken into consideration. Now, that's my suggestion to you. So since you don't know how much time you have left, but at the same time, I'm telling you, make decisions based on where you're going to be in the future. How do you figure that out? How do you figure out that juxtaposition between the two? I say, think about how long you plan on being around. All right, that's the way I would decide to do it. Do you plan on being around 20 years from now? Yes? Okay, then make decisions based on your belief and your expectation of being here 20 years from now. Now, if you don't plan on being here 20 years from now, then you can forget everything we talked about time perspective. You can just make decisions for right now since you plan on being dead tomorrow. then just do everything you want to do today. But if you happen to wake up tomorrow, all right, now you got to pay for those decisions. So again, make the decisions based on how long you plan on being here. Okay? So when you're making these further into the future decisions, so to speak, understand that they often will be less satisfying in the moment than some of the other options you have. All right, there's some things that I could be doing right now. I'm talking right now as I'm recording this. I could be doing things other than recording. All right, they would save me energy. It would not be as much work. I wouldn't have to be standing up. I wouldn't have to be speaking on this mic. I could save my voice. I could save my time. I can do some other things right now that would be more pleasurable to me right now in this moment than doing this. All right, I'm not saying that as if it's a burden, but I'm just letting you know, just giving you an example. But I'm doing this because I know that there's going to come a time where you're going to listen to this. You're not listening to this the exact moment that I'm recording it. So this is time perspective. The fact that I'm even recording this is time perspective, because I know that this is not coming out today. It's actually not even coming out tomorrow. By the time you're actually hearing this, this has already been recorded in the past. It's going to be the past to you. It's the present to me right now. But I'm doing this because I know in the future, somebody's going to be expecting a new episode of Work on Your Game podcast. This is it. That 6 months from now, a week from now, 3 years from now, someone's going to be expecting to hear, all right, what's the next episode? And this is it. Now, had I made a wrong decision when it came to my time perspective, it wouldn't be there. Somebody'd be like, well, what happened to this? There's no episode. What happened, Dre? Where is it? So are you disciplined enough to stay in that discomfort of making the decision that's going to pay off more in the future than it's going to pay off for you in the present? At least when it comes to your gratification. Let's put it that way. Because it could pay off for you. You could feel good about going to the gym even though it's uncomfortable. So that's a payoff. But I'm talking about as far as your gratification. The gratification from going to the gym, you don't get that gratification until later after you've done the workout. After the workout is over. You don't get bigger muscles just because you're in the gym. You get bigger muscles after you left the gym. And you feed your body with the protein and the rest at time, etc., right? Gratification comes after. Point number 3. Today's topic is how to get uncomfortable and stay there. In episode number 351, again, in the game group, refer back to episode 351 is on stress testing. Stress is uncomfortable. Can we agree that stress is uncomfortable? Even good stress is still uncomfortable. We talked about eustress not too long ago here on the show. Eustress is the stress that builds you, makes you stronger, fortifies you, makes you more mentally tough, builds your confidence, builds your discipline. So that's the positive kind of stress that we go towards. And then there's distress. That's the kind of stress that we don't want to be around. That's like grief, sadness, maybe anger, melancholy, things just not working out in our favor. That's distress. We don't want that kind of stress. That destroys. That's what's called distress. Dis-ease is the same. Distress, same thing. We don't want that kind of stress, but it happens. Eustress, we want that kind of stress, but that doesn't make it comfortable. Stress is uncomfortable, all forms of stress. But that doesn't have to be a bad thing. Just because it's uncomfortable doesn't mean it's bad, right? You go lift weight, those of you who lift weights consistently, or you work out, or you do yoga, or you do Zumba, or you do pole dancing classes, or any kind of exercise any of you does consistently, there's a period in that workout where you're like, damn, this is kind of hard right now. Usually, if you're getting results from the workout, you probably have that period during every workout. But it's not a bad thing. You're happy that that's happening because you know it's going to pay off for you in the future. Why? Because it's all about the story that you have in your head about the stress you're going through in this moment. See, the thing about the stress that you deal with is all about the story that you tell yourself. We all know, and if you don't know, I'm going to tell you right now, no event in life is positive or negative. Everything that happens to you in life is neutral. The weather is neutral. If somebody cuts you off in traffic, that's neutral. If somebody is a complete jerk to you, is neutral. If your business partner rips you off and steals all your money, that is neutral. If your boyfriend or girlfriend dumps you unexpectedly, that is neutral. If somebody spills coffee on your brand new suit or your brand new dress on your way to work, that is neutral. Every single thing that happens to you in life is neutral. If you go work out and you're feeling terrible during that workout and your trainer's being a real jerk and there's just too many people in the gym and you can't even get on your favorite piece of equipment, all of that is neutral. The only thing that makes it a good thing or a bad thing in life for any one of us, and this is all 100% relative, is the story that we tell ourselves about what's happening. If you change the story you tell yourself, then you change how your day went. All right, you could say you had a terrible day. That's because you chose to make the story about everything that happened in your day negative. At least the net result of everything that happened in your day in aggregate, you made it negative. That's the story that you told. If you have a great day, it's the exact same thing. It wasn't that a whole bunch of great things happened to you. No such thing as a great thing happening. That doesn't exist. That's an oxymoron. Just things happen and you decided that they were great. In aggregate, when you put everything together, you say, you know what, overall, today was great. Ice Cube has a song, Today Was a Good Day. And he has a whole song where he explains everything that happened in that day. But listen, somebody else could have the same things happen to them the same day that Ice Cube had, and they would say this is a terrible day, or it was an okay day, or they don't even remember the day because it was just nondescript. It's normal to them. So what makes it good or bad is the story that you decide to tell yourself. So this whole topic about getting uncomfortable and staying there, the reason why you can do this, I already told you why you would want to do it, but why you can do it is because you will tell yourself a certain story that makes it make sense for you. And the story that I tell myself about getting uncomfortable and staying there may be different from the story that works for you. So this is the time that you must invest. We know our 5 forms of investment: time, money, attention, energy, focus. This is the time that you must invest in figuring out what's the story I'm going to tell myself about dealing with this discomfort to make it make sense for me so that it pays off for me in the future based on my time perspective of success. So you see how all of this ties together. So you need to identify the stress that is debilitating, the stress that is aging you in dog years, or you can identify that same stress that you're dealing with as stress that is making you better and stronger for the future. It could be the exact same stress. Just what story are you going to tell? See, that kind of stress, that youth stress, that good stress that you label as good stress, that kind of stress breeds growth and development. So you can't get big muscles without lifting weights. All right, we have any gymnasts who listen to the Work on Your Game podcast? I know we have basketball, we got football, we got soccer, we have what else? We got bowling, we have card players, we got equestrian, we got horseback riders who listen to the show. Shout out to all the equestrian riders who listen to the show, and every other sport. We got softball as well. Shout out to the softball players who listen to the podcast. Do we have any gymnasts? I don't know. I don't think I've heard from a gymnast who listens to the show. Doesn't mean they don't exist. I just haven't heard from them. Or I did and I don't remember, but I don't think I've heard from them. But I always wonder, whenever I see women or men doing those gymnastics exercises, especially on a balance beam, is that what it's called? The long one, the balance beam. I wonder, or the vault, where they get that running start and they're sprinting and then they bounce off the vault and they do flips over that thing. And I always wonder how many times they fall before they get that right. Like how many times does a girl try to do that jump and then do a split in the air and then land on the balance beam and actually fall? And not land on the balance beam, or land in a way they didn't want to, before they actually get it right to where what we're seeing on TV and all of that. I'm sure they fall a whole lot of times. All right, and those falls are stress. That's stressful. Did y'all notice that I read this a while ago, but I'm not sure if it's still true, but it might be, that the high school sport, the youth sport that has the highest rate of injury, do y'all know what it is? If you ask people, what's the youth sport that has the highest rate of injury? Most people would say football, right? Because football is so violent and the players are hitting each other as hard as they can, but it's not football. The highest rate of injury sport for youth was cheerleading. Isn't that crazy? Like cheerleading. Why? Because they're doing these, I guess because they're doing the flips and they're doing I don't even know what they call it, when the girls get on top of each other and stack themselves on top of each other. That has the highest rate of injury. But I'm not trying to give you a youth sports injury report here. I'm unqualified to do so. The point that I'm making is those falls are stress. When you're a gymnast, that's stress. If you're a horseback rider, I'm sure you fell off that horse before. It was probably stressful. Horses are pretty tall. They're taller than they look on TV, right? When you're playing basketball, you fall, get your ankles broken, or you try to dunk and you miss, and you fall on the floor. Basketball courts are hard. All right? Concrete is hard. Hardwood floors is called hardwood. All right, they're hard. Football, I haven't played any tackle football. If you get hit in football, especially if you don't see it coming, that's hard. That's stress. You can get good flipping on that beam without hitting your head or shoulder. Can you get good at flipping on that balance beam, gymnast, without hitting your head or your shoulder, or landing your ass on the mat, or hitting your ass on the vault or on the beam a time or two? I don't think so. I don't think it's possible. I think you're going to have to take those falls. You're going to have to take those losses. You're going to have to take those L's. You're going to have to, if you're a cheerleader, there's going to be times you get on top of that pyramid and you fall because the whole thing collapsed and somebody's going to get their arm broken or something like that. It's going to happen because that's just part of the stress that you have to go through. Are you willing to deal with that discomfort of everybody falling on top of each other and then y'all getting up and doing the exact same thing over again the next time until you get it right? That's a question only you can answer. Let's recap today's topic, which is how to get uncomfortable and stay there. Those who achieve at super high levels compared to others are not just working hard, they're not just smarter, and not just better. They are willing to deal with what others are not willing to deal with. Episodes, again, refer to these: 1145, episode 819, episode 707, episode 412, all tangential to this topic. Point number one: what is driving you? Psychologists have proved that many of us are many more times driven. We are all rather more times driven by negative factors than by positive factors. We will do more to avoid a loss than we will to gain a victory. So you need to know what are your negative motivators that drive you to action, because they are stronger than your positive motivators, whether you wish to admit it or not. Point number 2, Brian Tracy talked about time perspective. The more successful individual makes decisions based further into the future than the unsuccessful individual who's only thinking about instant gratification and the immediate results of their actions. A successful person is thinking about the future results of their actions, way into the future, meaning how long do you plan on living? Make decisions based on that date or whenever that's going to be, that far into the future. So think about that. While I am an advocate for action and urgency in the moment, that does not mean we only live for the moment, because we may live past this moment. So when you're making those further into the future decisions, they are probably often less satisfying in the moment than some other options that you have. The question is, are you disciplined enough to make that decision anyway? Point number 3. In episode number 351, I talked about stress testing. Stress is uncomfortable, but it doesn't have to be a bad thing. Stress, the way that you feel about stress, whether it is distress that destroys you and ages you in dog years and is debilitating and it beats you down, that kind of stress, versus eustress, the kind of stress that makes you stronger and makes you tougher, that you look forward to, the kind of stress that you're happy to be going through, like being in the middle of your workout at the gym when you go to the gym every day. The difference between distress and eustress is not what you're going through. The difference is the story that you decide to tell yourself about the stress. You can't get big muscles without lifting weights, without lifting heavy weights and doing it on a consistent basis. You can't get good at doing backflips and flipping over bars and on balance beams without falling and landing awkwardly a couple times and twisting an ankle or two. You can't get good at dunking a basketball without trying to dunk a whole bunch of times and coming up short. All of that is stress. So if you're not willing to deal with that stress, and or you have a bad story and a terribly formed story that you told yourself about that stress, it's going to be hard for you to deal with it. But if you change your story about the stress, change the way you think about it, then everything else about it is going to change. So let me tell you refer you to 2 resources that will help you out with this. First of all, the game group. You want every episode that has ever come out of this podcast, we have it organized into not only by number and date, of course, but we also have it organized by category. So you want to hear more episodes about the stories you tell yourself, more about confidence, more about discipline, more about problem solving, more about having some real conversation with yourself and or finding people who are willing to have real conversation with you, more about business, more about sales, more about building your brand, more about mental toughness, more about taking initiative, more about energy and urgency. Each one of those that I just mentioned has its own category within the game group membership, and a whole bunch of other things, a whole bunch of my presentations that are not publicly available. You want to see my TED Talks and hear my explanations, and I wouldn't even call it explanation, but my background commentary on how each of those talks came together, what went into them, what I liked about them, what I didn't like about them, whether it was something I did or something going on in the event. Some articles that I've read online and curated for you that you need to read, because they support a lot of the topics that I've talked about here on this show. Not written by me, but written by others. My best YouTube videos. Those of you who don't watch YouTube too often, I think we all watch YouTube every now and then. My best video content is all organized in the game group membership, and a whole bunch of other stuff that I can't even remember off the top of my head. But listen, don't take my word for it. Just go to workonmygame.com/game group and read what's on that page. It will tell you everything that's going on in the game group membership, everything that we have to offer, all the value that we're giving you. You wouldn't believe how much value you're getting in the game group membership for what I'm asking you. Let me tell you what I'm asking you in order to become a member of the game group. I'm gonna give you a free 7-day trial. You become a member of the game group, you get your first 7 days free so you can see everything that's in there. We have 4 courses inside the game group membership that, as of this recording, are not available anywhere else, meaning you cannot buy these courses. The only way you get access to these courses is by being a member of the game group, and I'm giving you your first 7 days free. How could you not become a member of the game group? I don't understand. It's impossible. It's impossible for you to not become a member based on what I just told you in the last 30 seconds. But listen, go to workonmygame.com/game group so you can get that information. And once you're done getting that information and getting started with your game group membership, go to workonmygame.com/BB for the Bulletproof Bundle. These are my 4 best books on mindset, discipline, confidence, mental toughness, personal initiative, so that you don't have a problem getting uncomfortable and staying there, as we talked about here today. Work on your game. Dre all day.